The Atlanta run. The alarm pierced the darkness at 4:30 a.m., dragging Katherine from a sleep that had been more like unconsciousness. Her body ached from 3 days of budget airline seats and stress. She'd fallen asleep fully dressed, and now her clothes were wrinkled beyond redemption. She showered in the cramped bathroom, the water pressure weak and inconsistent. In the mirror, Karen Miller stared back at her, exhausted, older than her 43 years, wearing the weight of everything she'd learned. The simple black pants and gray cardigan that had seemed adequate for her undercover operation now felt like a costume she was trapped inside. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from Sarah Chen and 4 text messages, each more urgent than the last. The final one, sent at 11:47 p.m., read, "Westfield called emergency board meeting for Thursday morning. Pemberton presenting streamlining proposal. They're moving without you. Thursday morning, 2 days from now." They weren't even waiting for Friday. Katherine's hands trembled as she typed back, "Stick to the plan. I'll be there Thursday. Tell them I'm finalizing the operational assessment." It was technically true, even if they had no idea what that assessment actually entailed. The notification on her Skyward app showed her flight to Atlanta departing at 7:15 a.m. from LaGuardia. She'd booked it herself, using Karen Miller's credit card, paying the full fare like any other passenger. No upgrades, no priority boarding, no executive privileges. She grabbed her small rolling bag and headed out into the pre-dawn darkness. The subway to LaGuardia was packed with early morning commuters, janitors finishing night shifts, nurses heading to hospitals, airport workers starting their days. Katherine stood pressed against the door, her bag wedged between her legs, watching the diverse faces around her. These were the people her airline served. These were the people her decisions affected. A young black woman in a Skyward uniform sat slumped in a corner seat, eyes closed, clearly catching whatever sleep she could on her commute. Her name tag read, Monica. Katherine recognized the exhaustion in her posture, the bone-deep fatigue that came from working multiple shifts with inadequate rest. How many Monicas were there? How many employees pushing themselves to the breaking point while Richard Pemberton celebrated cost efficiencies? At LaGuardia, Katherine joined the security line at 6:20 a.m. It snaked through the terminal, easily 200 people deep. A family with 3 small children struggled with car seats and strollers. An elderly man shuffled forward with a walker. Business travelers checked their watches anxiously. One TSA agent processed the entire line. "This is ridiculous," a man in front of Katherine muttered. "I'm going to miss my flight." "They're understaffed everywhere," his companion replied. "Airlines, TSA, everybody. They all cut too deep." Katherine checked her phone, 6:47 a.m. Her flight boarded at 6:45. She was still 30 people back from the checkpoint. At 7:02 a.m., she finally cleared security and ran toward her gate, her bag bouncing behind her. Her gate was, naturally, at the far end of the terminal. She arrived at 7:11 a.m., breathless and sweating, to find the door still open and a harried gate agent scanning the last few passengers. "Flight 2847 to Atlanta?" Katherine gasped. "Boarding group 5. Hurry." The gate agent, a young Asian woman with dark circles under her eyes, barely looked up. Katherine handed over her phone with the boarding pass. The scanner beeped. "You're in seat 32B, middle seat. Move quickly, please." Of course, it was a middle seat. The jetway smelled of jet fuel and recycled air. Katherine hurried aboard, immediately hit by the familiar chaos of a full flight still boarding. Passengers jammed the aisles, struggling with oversized carry-ons. A flight attendant's voice called out, "If your bag doesn't fit, we'll gate check it. Please don't force it." Row 32 was near the back, just forward of the lavatories. Katherine squeezed past the passenger in the aisle seat, a large man in a business suit who didn't stand up, forcing her to climb over his knees. The window seat passenger, a teenager with headphones, didn't acknowledge her existence. Katherine wedged herself into the middle seat, her shoulders overlapping both armrests. The man in the aisle seat immediately claimed the armrest, spreading his legs wide into her space. The teenager leaned against the window, also claiming that armrest. This was how most of her passengers flew, every single day. A flight attendant hurried past, her face flushed. Katherine recognized her from the crew photos she'd reviewed in preparation for this operation. Jasmine Taylor, 12 years with Skyward, multiple commendations for customer service. Now she looked frazzled, counting overhead bins, speaking rapidly into her phone. "We're 3 bags over capacity. I need someone to make gate check announcements. No, we can't delay. We're already 8 minutes behind." The boarding process took another 15 minutes. Passengers argued about seat assignments. A family had been split across the plane. 2 people had been double booked in the same seat. Jasmine and the other flight attendant, an older white man whose name tag read Robert, handled each crisis with practiced efficiency, but Katherine could see the stress in their movements. At 7:34 a.m., the cabin door finally closed. They were 19 minutes behind schedule. "Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, we're number 17 for departure," the captain's voice announced. "We're looking at about a 25-minute taxi to the runway. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin." 44 minutes before they'd even take off. Katherine pulled out her phone, switching it to airplane mode, but not before seeing another message from Sarah. Pemberton sent preliminary proposal to full board, 2,400 position eliminations, mostly frontline staff. Westfield calling it overdue correction. 2,400 people. Jobs, health insurance, mortgages, families, gone. She looked up at Jasmine, who was demonstrating safety procedures with mechanical precision, her smile not reaching her eyes. How many of those 2,400 positions would be flight attendants? Gate agents? The people who actually made the airline function? The plane began its slow taxi. Katherine closed her eyes, feeling the familiar vibration of the engines. She'd been on hundreds of flights, thousands probably, but always in first class or on the private jet. Always with space, always with service, always insulated from the reality of what she'd created. The man next to her pulled out his laptop, elbowing her twice as he opened it. The teenager turned up his music loud enough that Katherine could hear the bass through his headphones. The seat in front of her reclined suddenly, slamming into her knees. "Excuse me," Katherine said to the person in front. "Could you please?" "I paid for a reclining seat," a woman's voice shot back without turning around. "You want more space? Buy a better ticket." The words stung because they echoed Katherine's own logic from countless board meetings. Premium revenue, ancillary fees, optimize every inch of space, monetize comfort. The plane finally reached the runway at 8:09 a.m., 54 minutes after the scheduled departure. Katherine thought about connection times, missed meetings, families separated. Every delay cascaded through the system, affecting hundreds of people. And yet, in the quarterly reports, they'd report the on-time departure as 7:15 a.m., because that's when the door closed. The statistics would look fine. The reality was something else entirely. The takeoff was rough. The plane climbed steeply, banking hard over Queens. Katherine's stomach lurched. The man next to her continued typing, his laptop balanced precariously. The teenager slept, his head lolling onto Katherine's shoulder. She thought about James Rivera's words from the night before. "We're just numbers on a spreadsheet." But they weren't numbers. They were Jasmine, running herself ragged for 12 years. They were Robert, probably close to retirement, still working full flights. They were Monica on the subway, catching sleep wherever she could find it. They were human beings, and she'd forgotten that. The flight leveled off, and the seatbelt sign dinged off. Jasmine and Robert immediately began their service, pushing a cart down the narrow aisle. Katherine watched them work. The practiced smiles, the efficient movements, the way they handled each passenger interaction with professional courtesy, even when passengers were rude or demanding. "Anything to drink?" Jasmine asked when she reached row 32. "Coffee, please," Katherine said. "Black." "We have coffee, but we're out of cups in economy," Jasmine said, her smile tight. "I can bring you water in a plastic cup, or you can purchase a coffee in our premium blend for $5, which comes in a proper cup." Katherine stared at her. "You're out of cups? We loaded for 147 passengers. We have 168 on board. Oversold flight." Jasmine's voice was carefully neutral, but Katherine heard the frustration underneath. "Would you like the water or the premium coffee?" "Water is fine, thank you." Jasmine poured water into a flimsy plastic cup that immediately began sweating condensation. Katherine took it carefully, trying not to spill on the laptop next to her. She watched Jasmine continue down the aisle, repeating the same explanation over and over. "We're out of cups in economy." Some passengers accepted it, others complained. One man demanded to speak to a supervisor. Jasmine handled it all with grace, but Katherine saw her jaw tighten with each interaction. This was a supply chain decision. Someone at corporate, probably in Richard Pemberton's cost-cutting initiative, had calculated the minimum number of cups needed per flight and reduced the order. They'd saved, maybe $3 per flight? And created this situation where flight attendants had to apologize and upsell passengers on coffee just to have something to drink it from. Katherine pulled out her notebook, Karen Miller's notebook, and wrote, "Supply chain optimization creating frontline failures, employees absorbing passenger anger for corporate cost decisions." The flight continued. The lavatories behind Katherine saw constant use, each door slam making the entire back section shake. The smell of the blue chemical toilet wafted forward. A baby cried somewhere in the middle of the plane. The man next to Katherine fell asleep and began snoring. Katherine tried to work on her laptop, but there was no room. She tried to read on her phone, but the teenager's music was too loud. She tried to sleep, but the seat was too uncomfortable, and the man next to her kept shifting, each movement jostling her. This was the product she sold. This was the experience she delivered. 2 hours of discomfort, indignity, and stress sold as transportation. Midway through the flight, Jasmine came by collecting trash. Katherine handed her the plastic cup. "Thank you," Jasmine said automatically. "Can I ask you something?" Katherine said quietly. "How long have you been flying?" Jasmine's professional mask flickered. 12 years. Why? Has it always been like this?" "Like what?" "This. Hard." Jasmine studied Katherine for a moment, and something in her expression shifted. "No," she said finally. "It used to be different. We used to have enough crew, enough supplies, enough time. We used to be able to actually take care of passengers." She glanced down the aisle, then back to Katherine. "Now we're just trying to survive each flight." "What changed?" "New management about 5 years ago. Everything became about efficiency. Metrics, cost per passenger mile." Jasmine's voice dropped lower. "They optimized the humanity right out of it." Katherine felt the words like a physical blow. 5 years ago. That was when she'd been promoted to COO, when she'd started implementing the strategies she'd learned at business school, when she'd begun her rise to CEO. She was the new management. She was the one who'd optimized the humanity out of it. "I'm sorry," Katherine said. "For what?" Jasmine asked, confused. I don't know. For how it is now." Jasmine's expression softened slightly. "It's not your fault. It's corporate. They don't see us as people. We're just line items." She moved on with her trash bag. Katherine sat in the cramped middle seat, surrounded by the reality of her decisions, and felt something break inside her. Not just guilt. She'd felt that before. This was deeper. This was understanding. She'd built this system. She'd created this reality, and now she had to fix it. The plane began its descent into Atlanta at 10:47 a.m., landing at 11:03. The moment the wheels touched down, passengers immediately unbuckled and stood up, grabbing bags from overhead bins while the plane was still taxiing. Jasmine's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until we reach the gate." No one listened. Katherine stayed seated, watching the chaos. Passengers pushed into the aisles, blocking the way, everyone desperate to be first off the plane. The man next to her stood up, his laptop bag hitting Katherine in the head. "Sorry," he muttered without looking at her. It took 20 minutes for the plane to empty. Katherine was one of the last off, emerging into the Atlanta terminal, exhausted and sore. Her phone came alive with notifications. Sarah had called 6 more times. There were emails from board members. A text from Westfield. "Where are you?" "We need you at HQ tomorrow for preliminary discussion." She had one more day. One more day as Karen Miller before she had to return as Katherine Morrison and face what she'd learned. But first, she had a decision to make. Katherine found a quiet corner of the terminal and called Sarah Chen. "Katherine," Sarah's relief was palpable. "Where have you been? Westfield is—" "I know, I got the messages. What's the full situation?" Pemberton sent his proposal to the entire board, 2,400 position eliminations, mostly frontline staff. He's framing it as operational efficiency and competitive necessity. Westfield is backing him completely. They've scheduled a preliminary vote for Thursday morning at 9. They can't vote without me. They're not planning to, but they want you there to support it. Westfield assumes you'll agree once you see the numbers. Katherine closed her eyes. Of course he did. Because the old Katherine Morrison would have agreed. The Katherine Morrison who'd left for this undercover operation would have looked at the spreadsheet and seen the logic. But that Katherine Morrison was gone. Sarah, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to pull every discrimination complaint filed in the last 2 years, every customer service incident report, every employee grievance, everything that's been dismissed or buried. I need it all compiled and ready for Thursday morning. Katherine, that's going to raise questions. HR will want to know why. Tell them I'm conducting a comprehensive operational review. Tell them whatever you need to, but I need that information. There was a pause. What are you planning? I'm planning to tell the truth, Katherine said. All of it. They're going to fight you. Westfield, Pemberton, they have the votes. Then I'll change their minds. And if you can't? Katherine looked around the terminal, at the exhausted passengers, the overwhelmed staff, the system grinding everyone down. Then, I'll go down fighting. But I'm not signing off on cutting 2,400 jobs. Not after what I've seen. Okay, Sarah said quietly. I'll have everything ready. Katherine ended the call and sat for a moment in the anonymous terminal. Around her, Skyward Airlines continued its operations. Flights boarding, passengers rushing, employees managing the chaos. All of it built on the foundation she'd created. She opened her notebook and began writing. Not notes this time, but a speech. The speech she'd give on Thursday morning. The words that would either save her airline or end her career. She wrote for an hour, filling page after page with everything she'd learned. The discrimination Elena Vasquez faced, the safety concerns James Rivera had raised, the supply failures, the staffing shortages, the human cost of efficiency. When she finally looked up, she had a plan. It was 1:30 p.m. Her return flight to New York was at 6:45. She had 5 hours. Katherine stood up, shouldered her bag, and walked through the Atlanta terminal. She'd come here as Karen Miller, anonymous passenger. But when she left, she'd be Katherine Morrison again. And Katherine Morrison had work to do. She found another crew hangout, a small Mexican restaurant near the employee parking lot. Inside, she recognized several Skyward uniforms. She ordered food and sat at the counter, listening. Did you hear about the cuts? A flight attendant was saying. 2,400 positions. They're calling it a rumor, but my union rep says it's real. Of course it's real. They've been planning this for months. Katherine ate her lunch and listened to her employees discuss their fear, their anger, their resignation, and she made her final notes. At 5:30 p.m., she headed back to the terminal for her return flight. The gate area was packed. The flight oversold again. Katherine checked in as Karen Miller one last time, accepted her middle seat in the back of the plane, and boarded. This time, she sat next to a young mother with a baby. The woman looked exhausted, juggling a diaper bag and trying to keep the infant quiet. Katherine helped her stow her bag and offered to hold the baby while she got settled. Thank you, the woman said, near tears. Everyone else just glared at us. It's okay, Katherine said, holding the small, warm body carefully. You're doing great. The flight back to New York was turbulent. The baby cried. Passengers complained. The flight attendants, understaffed and overwhelmed, did their best. And Katherine Morrison, CEO of Skyward Airlines, sat in seat 34B and understood exactly what she had to do. The plane landed at LaGuardia at 10:17 p.m. Katherine took the subway back to her hotel, the same route she'd taken that morning. In her room, she packed Karen Miller's clothes and pulled out the garment bag Sarah had left for her. Inside was her CEO uniform, the tailored suit, the executive presence, the armor of authority. She hung it on the bathroom door and stared at it. Tomorrow morning, she would put that suit on. She would walk into Skyward headquarters as Katherine Morrison, and she would tell her board exactly what their efficiency measures had created. She set her alarm for 6 a.m. and lay down in the hotel bed. still as Karen Miller for a few more hours. Her phone buzzed with one final message from Sarah. Westfield moved the meeting to 8 a.m. He wants to vote and announce before markets open. You have less than 10 hours. Katherine read the message and smiled grimly. 10 hours to save her airline. 10 hours to make them see what she'd seen. 10 hours to choose between her career and doing what was right. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in days, she slept without nightmares.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.